Alright guys, back in the garage working on Heartbreaker again. Gonna wrap up the rear brake lines on this sucker. In the last video you saw I kind of just had them hard lined straight into the calipers to get it going for right now. And this video we're gonna wrap that up. I ended up having to order a kit from Wilwood to get it to work. None of the parts stores where I live really stock too much of anything anymore for these older cars or even anything drum to disc conversion related. But while we're at it, I figured I'd show you kind of some of the stuff I've been doing up front here in the engine bay to get this thing back on the road. So this is the 440 I've got in this thing. Got it set up with the MSD and their wires. That's what I've been working on lately. I had it all plugged in before, but with how tight the heads are on this raised block with the steering box, and then especially on this side with the fender, you don't have a ton of room to run their multi-angle kind of boots that they come with. So I ended up just going on Summit and getting a set of 90-degree boots to kind of clean things up and then keep everything nice and tucked away from the headers and the steering rack, all that stuff. While I was at it, I got some of these spark plug organizers and definitely cleaned up the engine bay quite a bit. Another thing I was doing too was getting the voltage system set up on this thing. Whoever had this before me, I think they pretty much just used it as a strip car, so it didn't come with an alternator or really any provisions to mount one. I think a big part of the reason for that is, as you can see, this motor is plated right to the frame of the car. It's like that in the back too. I don't know how well you can see it, but right around where the bell housing and the trans connect, it's bolted up there too. But part of the issue with doing that you run into is this whole water pump, at least this style bracket that I was trying to use, ends up getting pushing all this out a little bit, so none of your pulleys really quite line up quite right. Even the water pump there, you can see, is just a little bit further forward than that harmonic balancer pulley. So at some point I'll probably end up just throwing an electric water pump on this and being done with it. It'll help give me a little bit more room in here too. That way I can hopefully eventually get this radiator tucked back a little bit, get a better electric puller fan instead of dealing with this pusher. Yes, pretty much what I just ended up doing was I ended up getting another spacer right in here and just kind of trimming that down to size. And I got a little bit longer of a bolt to get better thread engagement into the head back there. The one that came with the kit did work, but I was only getting maybe 2-3 threads on it. I wasn't really comfortable with that. And then for the tensioner, I just made a little L bracket down there and boogered that sucker on there. Ain't pretty, but she's not going anywhere. Then made about 15 trips to the parts store and got a belt that finally worked and got it all snugged up, and it's charging good now. Yeah, in addition to getting the alternator all set up and charging and then getting the wire management done for the spark plug wires, I was able to get the kickdown cable for this sucker installed. The vehicle didn't come with one in it when I bought it, so honestly I don't think that this transmission has a manual valve body, but I also don't think that whoever had it before me was running one, so we'll see if it needs one or not. Fairly positive this trans doesn't have a full manual valve body in it. If it does, that's awesome. We can just take that thing off and save it for a later project, but figured I'd be safer than sorry for right now. Got this sucker all hooked up and working good. And I'll end up doing another video on that now that I understand it myself a little bit better, and kind of show you guys how I got it on there and adjusted more once we start driving the vehicle and figure out what we need to do with the adjustment right here to get it shifting better once it is running. I know a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just end up zip tying your carb wide open, and then down on the bottom of the transmission you'll end up taking the kickdown lever and having that locked all the way back, and then you'll kind of get your cable hooked up to your carb and then get it hooked up down there and have it adjusted like that from the starting point. And I guess that's kind of the way that Dodge was doing it back in the day from the manufacturer, when they had the like Z-bar linkage that would come out here and then go down to the engine block and then go back down to the trans and then to the kickdown lever. Yeah, like I was saying, once we get this thing running and driving, stopping a little bit better, and can actually go out on the street safely, we'll start messing with that a little bit more, and I'll get you guys a better video on that. But today, we're finally wrapping up the Willwoods. This is the flex line kit. We've just got these clamps that are gonna bolt straight to the axle tube, and I kind of already put them together. But you've got your chassis fitting right there that the hard line's gonna screw right into there, and then these soft lines will end up hooking into that and then running over the caliper. Additionally, it'd be pretty nice having it set up like this versus the hard line like I do right now. Anytime we do go to change pads on this thing, with how it is set up, pretty much gonna have to bleed the brakes every single time, because I'm, you know, or not so much the pads, but anytime I have to take the caliper off on this thing, you know, with it just hard lined straight in, it's definitely not the cleanest setup. And then any work I do have to do on this caliper with taking it off to get to the axle or whatever, it's just gonna end up turning into a whole process where I've got to bleed the brakes. So this will definitely make the ease of maintenance on this side of things a lot better. Alright, so this will probably be a little bit different on your guys' 8 3/4. On this one, with it being a drag setup, the previous owners ended up plating this rear end to kind of help keep everything from torquing and twisting too much, make it a little bit stiffer. So it kind of eliminates all of my options, at least, unless I want to cut out a section of this plate for mounting it anywhere on this side of the U-bolt with the tube. So that leaves me with this area, which I can't really use, because if I have this sitting down flush, it's right on this fitting, and I can't go back far enough to where it's not going to be an issue with getting that flex line on. So I'm kind of thinking maybe right here, probably have to rotate it like so, that way I can tighten up the bolts for it. So we're gonna try that and see how that works. Yeah, one of the nice things about buying something like an old drag project is that you do get a lot of cool old school performance parts with it that you would probably otherwise would have ended up buying. But at the same time, once you start trying to put your own cool performance parts on it, it can become quite the hassle, dealing with stuff that previous owners had already put on. You kind of see I'm rotating it right now. I'm just doing that to gain a little bit easier access to these bolts because they're so stinking tiny. Once I get them started, we'll definitely rotate it and lock it down in a better spot. Oh, shoot, dang. Come on. Nice, all right. Got that snugged up just a little. Kind of swing back out towards you guys. Try and get it locked down in the spot that'll work. I'm thinking straight up and down might be the way to go if I can get my ratchet in here to snug these down. Yep, no chance. Probably end up just having to go like this. Get this flex line on here and see if it's going to be rubbing on the rotor or not. What I think, see, I think I have an Allen wrench that might actually fit this guy, just a little handheld one. Alright, so my phone actually ended up dying not too long after I got that brake line cut. So you won't get to see the whole process on this side. That's alright, we still have this whole side that we have to do, and that'll be every bit just as much of a challenge to get that line straightened out and then hooked in like this. Yeah, so I ended up having to do a whole bunch of fiddling to get this thing to actually fit and line up good. And generally you don't want to have loops like this in your brake system because air can get caught up in here, and it makes it a lot harder to bleed them. But with the space that I'm working with to kind of keep it tucked away from that rotor, I ended up having to do it. And then getting this flex line hooked up and the hard line right there, what I actually ended up having to do with this clamp was kind of loosen it up, get it up a little bit, and then get it started, and then cinch it back down, and then just snug these guys up. But you'll get to see that on the other side, sorry about that. Alright, so challenge with this side, you kind of see we've got this nice S-curve back here. Probably gonna have to cut it somewhere about there and then get it straightened out and plumbed in to that bracket with that chassis fitting. I might even end up cutting it closer to like right there. Yeah, we'll just have to play it by ear, see how it goes. before I got too crazy. Alright, I'm gonna start off cutting it right about here, and that'll definitely be too much, but it'll be enough for us to start getting the line straightened out. And once we get it a little straighter, I'll end up cutting it down a little bit. And then I had to do this on the other one too because it was a little crooked, but we'll have to straighten this line out, maybe cut it somewhere in order to get this fitting off so we can reuse it. I like to end up sliding a couple wrenches over, kind of get the smaller kinks and stuff out of the line. This makes it a little bit easier when you've got bends in those smaller areas. I think we're too bad right there. Probably end up cutting it right about here. Take like another inch off. Because we need to bend this line back a little bit once we get the fitting in, because it's just a little long. We always can. And then we can tweak this one to get it to line up right. That guy nipped off. Get our flare tool. It's always a good idea to keep, where did it go? Hang on to this old piece and then maybe take like another section or something, kind of like what we cut here, and stick it in your flare tool, you know, and try it a couple times. Make sure that once you are done flaring it, it's pretty similar to what you're pulling off originally, because especially if the fitting you had on there before wasn't leaking, you want to keep it pretty close to that. That'll be your best bet for not having issues once you do go to start bleeding the brakes. You could, of course, go down to the auto parts store and just pick up a new section of line and get it plumbed in straight, but that would, of course, cost you extra money. You've already got the line in here, you know. Spend a couple extra minutes tweaking it, or at least that's what I'm doing. If I can find my wrench. There it is. Guys, all flared up. Pop this off, make sure it looks good. Good enough for government work. Now I'm going to take this over to the vise, get this straightened out, probably trim it down a little bit. Get this. Oh, shoot. Alright, so what actually just happened, I'm sure all you guys saw it that were watching the video, I actually ended up flaring it before I had my fitting here on it. So what we're doing right now is what I should have been doing before I got too excited and started flaring it. Trying to get this straightened out enough to where we can get this slid back probably to right around there somewhere. And then we can flare it again. You know, I don't care what you guys say in the comments. There's two types of people in this world. People that have forgot to put their fitting on and flared it before, and then dirty liars. I know everybody out there that's done any sort of work on brakes has done it at least once. So I'm just using a box wrench to kind of tweak this line a little bit here and there to try and get it straightened back out. There we go, just like that. Alright, so I just paused that real quick while I was flaring it again, since you already watched me do it once. I wasn't going to make you guys watch me do it twice. Now we're going to start the whole song and dance of getting this clamp on the axle tube. Now the reason I'm getting this started, I'm just going to get it hand tight. And the same thing with this flex line. A little bit of dirt on there. Is because once I get this down in here, these U-bolts are definitely going to give me trouble with trying to get the fitting lined up, so that I can get this snugged. So if I get them started Like the flex line will hit right around in here, and then the U-bolt will be just right under the hard line on the other side. But once I do actually have them on there and then get this clamp started, I can just kind of rotate it back and forth a little bit here and there and get these little Allen bolts all mounted up. Oh shoot, how did I lose one already? There we go. Getting these little bolts started with the brake line and the flex line attached is quite the pain, but no way around it, at least in my case. Sorry, I'm not trying to block you guys out of the shot. Alright. The idea is just get that kind of centered right about there. Take 10 years getting these bolts snugged up because I only have this much room to work with. So I won't make you guys sit through that. I'll pause it, and once I get them snugged up, we'll keep on. Alright, now that I've got that done, after one eternity later, getting these little bolts snugged up, I have no idea on why wilwood didn't put the thread side on the bottom and the bolt going into the top. I feel like that would make it so much easier to install them. I don't know, maybe there's a lot of people that actually mount them to the bottom of the axle. I feel like that wouldn't make too much sense to me. Generally, you want to keep your brake lines on top of the axle. That way, if you get debris that get kicked up in the road or whatever, piece of tire, it doesn't just instantly rip off your brake line and you can still stop. Get these guys snugged up. As I was saying, get these guys snugged up and then work on getting that 45 in there. Man, come on. Guys, getting tight. Thinking we'll probably just do the same thing as the other side. Do, yeah, 45 going right into there. There it is. Yeah, one of the things that's pretty nice with this kit that I got from Wilwood, this Flexline kit, is they had two different sets of these fittings that are MPT to JIC here. They had one set of fittings were 90s and the other set were these 45s. So that was sweet that I didn't have to run to the parts store and grab more, kind of like I did when I was actually putting these on. There. And bam, got flex lines. Now anytime I have to take this caliper off to change rotors or whatever, I don't have to re-bleed the whole brake system. Yeah, that's how to install flex lines on your 8 3/4 after you've converted it to disc brakes. So hopefully we'll get some more videos out here soon when I get some more time. I know the dash in this thing, we're going to be tearing that thing apart, probably putting a whole aluminum panel in. I've got a couple of gauges already. I've got to save up some more money and get more. The auto meters are not cheap, but hopefully they'll be worth it. So, alright, thanks for watching. See you next time.